Craigslist really shortly, and this is a Singer 201-2. This is the one of the more famous of the Singer models. In addition to the featherweight and the 301, this is the other there's a few others, but one of the other primary Singer sewing machines that has a rotary hook. You guys have heard me in the other videos talk about the rotary hook and how it can make a really, really nice straight stitch, super fine, I guess you'd say. And I wanted to make the video. This particular machine that you're seeing listed is what's called a Centennial, and you know the Centennials because if you check the serial number, which of course is on the machine, and then you'll see what is a commemorative badge. In the place you normally would see a brass Singer badge, you'll see this, and it has kind of a sort of a blue circle. It's the same as any other 201, only it was a, quote, limited edition. This was 1951, so even back then they were doing limited editions. 201s are not rare. They were the most expensive Singer straight stitch machine you could buy when they first came out, and but they're not super rare. Most machines aren't. You've heard me say that other times. I would say the Centennials are semi-rare, and so when I price them, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, I price the Centennials are priced about $50 more than you would see for just a 201, right? Because they're slightly more collectible, and people seem to feel that way. But they sew the same as any other 201, which is pretty darn amazing. Now, when you see this machine, I'm going to run through a variety of fabrics for you guys so you can see its flexibility. You see the machine, what you're seeing, you look at it, you say, okay, it's a black Singer sewing machine, it's an older machine, it's a straight stitch only. You might say, well, what's the big deal, right? Well, it is a pretty big deal because if you only need a straight stitcher, or if you have more than one machine and you want a straight stitch machine, this is one of the nicest you'll ever come across. And not just the one that I've got, but just this Singer model, period. And it does a straight lock stitch. That's what it does. And of course, it has reverse feed. But it is a stitch of such quality that it is really worth having on its own, even if you need other types of stitches. It's definitely, having a dedicated straight stitcher is a wonderful thing. And Singer made some of the best straight stitch machines that I think that were ever made. So just a few features about the 201. You'll notice that the light bulb, and the light bulb works here. I'm in the sunroom in the afternoon, so I'm not going to really use it today, but it certainly works. The light bulb is mounted on the front. That's one of the ways you know a 201. And your control is here, and you have one control. It's beautifully simple. You come all the way up for reverse, and then you come all the way down for the longest straight stitch. And then as you move up toward the center of the stitches, you can shorten them and get that beautiful, almost a needle, a micro dot stitch, I call it, that the Singer straight stitchers are known for. This machine is included, and you'll see this in the photos listing. It comes with a number of vintage attachments. It takes low shank feet, so if you want to put newer low shank feet, you can get them in any sewing shop. I love the vintage feet and attachments. They're beautifully machined and made, and they're easy to get. Most of them are just very inexpensive. This is an edger foot, for example. And it's just, the quality is incredible, just like the machine. And these were made in very large numbers. So the attachments are by and large not rare. They're not super expensive. So you can use new ones if you want. In fact, if you have low shank attachments from another machine, they should fit, as long as they're not for zigzag, because this is straight only. And this particular machine is sitting in its original cabinet. And when and the cabinets, by the way, sewing cabinets are not very expensive. You can find them used all over the place. People don't always appreciate the quality of those cabinets. The cabinets were very well made in the vintage era. They're made of real wood. This is a mahogany version. They are reinforced underneath with steel plates, and they're just incredibly strong. And they had to be, because the machines were heavy. Unlike the featherweight and the 301 I mentioned earlier, this machine is not portable. I mean, it weighs, I think it's close to 55 to 60 pounds. So you definitely want it either in a case or in a table of some sort. But anyway, this one comes with a table, and it includes a foot pedal. And the reason you don't see it is because the foot pedal is actually mounted in a bracket, and it slides in and out. Singer had a clever setup. You could take the foot pedal, the button-style foot pedal, and I have serviced that as well. And it has there's a little bracket. It slides up inside the bracket, and you can use it for knee control. For those of you who want both hands here, and maybe you don't want to use your feet, Singer gave you the option. So if you get this machine, you can either use the foot pedal with your foot, or you can have knee control. It's your option. It's a really nice thing to have. But again, when you went to the Singer dealership, you could, when you bought the machine, you had to pay extra for the cabinet. The cabinets were expensive, very well made. They were made by Singer's own carpenters. And of course, you could choose maple and walnut and cherry and mahogany. And they had all these good, better, best things that you could do. But this machine, one other feature I'm going to mention about it, and I'll actually do some sewing for you, is that it is one of several Singer machines that has what is called direct drive, okay? So there's no belt on this machine. Overhauling this machine, I'm going to do a separate video about why restoration of a sewing machine is very time consuming and why there is a value when you pay extra for that. But I'm not going to do that here. That's a whole nother video. But this machine has a motor that's directly connected. It's wired up, of course, and then it's directly connected to the drive shaft, so there's no belt to be used. And it is why this machine, even though its motor is it's 3/4 of an amp motor, it's extremely powerful. Okay, and there were different methods that sewing machine companies had for getting their machines to be powerful. Some companies would use. I've got machines online now that have 1 amp all the way up to 1.5 amps, and they just have these strong motors, and they have one single belt. Other companies would use strong motors, and they would use 2 belts with these reduction pulleys. Other brands would use, they had controls on the motors that would control them electrically to get more torque. But with Singer, they chose to, even with a 3/4 amp motor, this machine is so powerful, and it's because of I believe it's because of the direct gears, and that's how they got so much power. But anyway, let me start sewing for you. I'm going to give you guys sort of a variety of things. I've just got some really light muslin here, 2 layers. And I've got it on a long stitch, and I'm going to start sewing. And all sewing machines have certain sounds, and there's something really wonderful about the way I'm going to do a little back tacking here for you guys, the way a Singer 201 sounds. It's unlike any other machine, sort of a hum, right? Really neat. And this machine, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do that short stitch. Let me, actually, before I do that, let me show you notice the beautiful needle control. I often show this on Singers. For those of you who sew slowly, whether you're experienced or just learning to sew, I really love this feature, right? Because I know a lot more about machines than I know about sewing. I know some, but it's something I actually need when I'm doing some sewing work. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to speed her up and let you see her. Okay, and of course she has direct reverse feed, so that was a great feature when it first came out. You could just go into reverse while you were sewing forward. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to shorten the stitch, and it's one of my favorite things about the Singer rotary hooks. They have this incredible, it's just micro short stitch, right? Those of you who quilt use this. Some people who, if I were going to sew a knit fabric, I might want a shorter stitch here that will give me some stretch. So, take this off for you guys, and get my needle up here. And I'll show you the quality. Hopefully this will come out in this sort of daylight. Let's see. Yeah, you can see just the quality of the stitch is really just phenomenal. And I think in this light, even you can see, although I've got white thread on cream muslin here, I think it still shows up. Just the consistency to this stitch that's amazing, and not a pretty darn long stitch for a 1951 model machine. Now I'm going to move over to a heavier upholstery fabric. This is pretty thick. I had a big supply of this, and I've used this on some of the other machines to kind of show them off. And let's go back to a longer stitch length here. And this is a textured fabric, but I still think you'll be able to see the stitch here. And again, it just goes right through the fabric, no problem. And it's pretty heavy stuff, right? The needle I'm using right now is a size 16 denim needle, and I have that set up. I don't actually have any denim, but I'm going to sew through some pants here in a minute, and you'll see why I want that. So here's the stitch, and again, that's a textured fabric, but again, went right through it, no problem. And I'm going to come over here. I've used this before on some of my other machines, but this is part of a cargo pant, and it has, it has a hem stitch here. It's, fairly heavyweight cotton, and then where it doubles over here, that seam gets really thick. And I want to sew this for you guys because I want you to see the way the machine, goes right through this seam. And it may not sound like much, but a lot of new machines will not do this very well, unfortunately. It's kind of sad. So I'm going to come across here and I'll come back. Let's come back and let her come back through one more time. And now you can see, you'll see the stitch and you'll see it come right over that seam, pretty darn thick. And here's the other side. And again, you don't lose tension, right? And it doesn't create any issues or problems. And that's pretty impressive. I'm going to fold it over again. Let's see what it does when I double that. And it's just, again, one of the main reasons people come for a vintage machine or look for one is because they're trying, they want to sew lightweight stuff, but they want to sew some heavier weight fabrics, and they can't do it with a newer machine. So I get her going here. Let's see, I'll turn it around and we'll make another pass. You can see that trying to get my knee here. I'm really tall, and so I'm trying to get my knee under here to get on that lever, the pusher. But if you look, you will see it went over, this is like 2 layers of this seam, right? If I can stop moving around so you guys can see it. So, again, that's again, you would think new machines, they could do this, but they don't. It's kind of unfortunate. So another big selling point for a vintage machine, and it's just amazing, a 3/4 amp motor, and this machine is really strong. And lastly, I'm going to do a couple things. I don't have a needle, leather-tipped needle, which you can easily find because I've got the denim one in right now for the heavy stuff. But I'm going to show you garment leather, and then I'm also going to do some vinyl. I have a lot of people who buy from me who want to sew these materials. And again, your big test, I would just wiggle test, is it should be really flimsy and flexible, right? If it's garment weight leather, it'll do this, right? Or even the vinyls. The stiffness is what you want to be careful of because, again, you cannot sew, you really should not be sewing anything that's stiff as a board. These machines were not able to handle it. In fact, most industrials will not do that. You have to have a very specific industrial machine to sew very stiff leathers or any other material that has a board-like stiffness. So let's see what she does with the garment leather. Turn her around here and see if I can get my knee in the right place here, and then I'll see if I can speed it up a little bit. There she goes. A little back tack. And again, with a leather tip needle, this would be even better. And then some leathers they may get a little sticky. You'll want a roller foot, which you can get. So again, sewing leather, this is a little darker. I want to make sure this actually shows up. There we go. It's just an amazing thing to be able to do these materials and the machine not miss a beat, right? So you don't want to sew stiff leathers, and you don't want to sew like 5 and 6 layers of even the garment leathers. That's not something you really want to do. And I'm going to look and see where my bobbin thread is. Oh, I'm out of bobbin thread. Okay, I'm going to get this loaded, and we'll start back in just a sec. Okay, guys, got my bobbin reloaded. Now I have a blue thread in here, which should show up well. But I wanted to go ahead and sew some of the marine vinyl. I'm almost out of time here, but I wanted to do that for you guys. And I went ahead and put in for you, this is 4 layers of marine vinyl with a foam back. And again,